Namaskar. In this series of BSE IPF of investor education, in the year 2020, what all developments happened in the stock markets? Uh, in this last 10 videos, we will be running through the entire tumultuous year that was 2020, the year of a crisis, but which gave us lessons for the lifetime. These are some precious lessons which we as investors must take from this crisis, and therefore this special series of 10 videos with a theme year of crisis, lessons of a lifetime. So as we begin, and as the pandemic started in 2020 February March, prior to that, the situation in Indian capital markets was not especially the bond markets, was not something which we could write home about, in the sense that the yields and the yield spread. So we have to understand this important term. Uh, if the if the yield on a good safe paper, say PSU paper, is 8%, then the yield on a risky paper or a cooperative bank FD would be something like 10% if PSU bank is giving you 8%. And this 2% difference is known as the yield spread. So between the benchmark, which is the risk-free rate, and the riskier asset, whichever credit rating we look at. So the difference between those two is known as yield spread. And this is a function of liquidity. If there is ample liquidity, obviously yield spreads will come down, because this one thing we have to understand, that when risk increases, return expectations increase, but when there is more liquidity, our risk taking ability automatically increases. We must have observed this. Whenever we have got extra liquidity, so to that extent we would be able to take slightly riskier positions, either in the markets or investments or whatever. So even with banks, you must have observed that when the banks are flush with liquidity, they would try to push for personal loans or credit cards. So these are the riskier assets for the banks. But why are they pushing them? Because they are flush with funds. If banks are not flush with funds, if banks are facing some liquidity liquidity issues, then they would rather stop these high risk products and they would go for those with collaterals, housing loan, stuff like that. So therefore, the first point we must understand before we enter the pandemic period. So before also the pandemic, in India, the liquidity crisis which was there in the markets due to defaults by various corporate entities, that set a background for the unforeseen in 2020. So there will be these small 5 minutes sessions, slightly longish maybe some of them, what all happened in 2020 and what we have to learn from that. So this was the first session. It gave a background that before entering the pandemic, we had our sort of liquidity issues, due to which the yields and the yield spreads were slightly, yields were slightly higher, yield spreads were slightly stretched. So when the pandemic happened, this got escalated even more. So now in the second session, we will take the same topic forward. So thank you for watching the series. BSE, IPF and SEBI are allowing us to do this series. So thank you BSE, IPF, thank you SEBI also. And this will be a 10 videos small series. So do watch all of them to understand what happened in this year in 2020. Once in a lifetime, hopefully we'll never have to see such a year again. Year of a crisis, lessons of a lifetime. Crisis is too precious to be wasted. Thank you very much.